Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Cutting Edge, brought to you by Schmidt Brothers Cutlery. I'm Chef Diana, and I'm joined here today with Samantha, who's moderating the chat. Hi, Samantha.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to be working with you again. It's absolutely a pleasure. We've had lots of knife discussion prior to class and are really excited to introduce you to yet another set of these fabulous Schmidt Brothers Cutlery, the Zebra 6-piece barbecue set. So fun. Really just a great set of tools. Check the Schmidt Brothers website for availability. This set can be found at Crate & Barrel, and all the knives can be found on the Schmidt Brothers website. And if you're not familiar with Schmidt Brothers website or with their knives, you need to get familiar. And we'll start that process tonight because you're going to want some. They're absolutely fabulous and affordable and last a long time. So Schmidt Brothers is on a mission to have you embrace, love cooking, and you need to feel comfortable with your tools and have an assortment of tools. So we want to definitely work with Schmidt Brothers and sharpen your passion for cooking. So welcome again. I'm Chef Diana, super happy to be here. I have taught some Schmidt Brother cutlery classes before and really enjoy them. Word of caution, the first Schmidt Brothers class that I taught, I realized how dull my knives at home were. So they come really sharp, and they also keep their edge for a long time, which is a fabulous feature of them. You need to handle them properly. They never go in the dishwasher, only hand cleaned, and you just handle them properly, but just be careful because they are very sharp, which is a fabulous feature, obviously, but sometimes we don't realize how dull the knives we've been using are. So really important information. Safety is really important. I taught a class yesterday, and it bears repeating what I said yesterday, that when I start a project, a recipe, if I start the class and I have 10 fingers, I'd like to finish the class or the project with 10 fingers. That's one of my goals, okay? So we have lots of goals throughout cooking. So this set, this beautiful Zebra wood 6-piece barbecue knife set. So barbecue, yes, but so many other uses also. So first of all, before I unveil this gorgeous set of knives, I want to know, and maybe you can put this in the chat and Samantha can share with us, how many of you are fair weather outdoor barbecue people? I mean, we're coming from all over the world to these classes, so maybe you live somewhere nice and warm and it's warm all year, and it's like, oh yeah, sure, I barbecue all year long. Maybe you live somewhere on the East Coast where it's been really cold, and even here in the Pacific Northwest, we've had some pretty chilly, miserable weather, and we get a lot of rain. So I know people that live here in the Pacific Northwest, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm a diehard barbecue person. I don't care, sleet, rain, whatever's coming down, however cold it is, single-digit temperatures, which is unusual here, but we get them sometimes. I'm out there barbecuing. Or, not gonna do it. If it's not 70 degrees and sunny, I'm not going outside. So we're probably all over the place. Personally, I'm kind of somewhere in between there. If I really want that nice barbecue grill flavor, and I'll go outside in some weather that's not so desirable and grill. So I bet we're all over the place with that. So this set is ideal for anybody in your life, including yourselves, who likes to barbecue. Whether you're a fair weather or a diehard, it's a wonderful, fabulous set, but there's so many uses for each and every one of these knives for other things as well. So this is the set, and I love this little travel kit, safety kit that it comes in, this canvas bag. It's fabulous. So anybody ever traveled camping, you rent a rental unit somewhere. I like to take my own knives, and this makes it super easy for you to put these knives in here. You roll it up, it packs so easily and compact. Your knives are safe, they're handy, and you can travel with them. So I love that, especially what if you're camping and you have access to a grill or a barbecue, but you want to have good tools with you as well. Pack along a nice little cutting board and you're good to go. So first of all, it comes with this canvas bag, which is fabulous. And then each knife also comes with a protective cover. Okay, so I'm going to pay attention here as I do this, but they're in these sheaths that are really solid and heavy duty that protect not only the knife itself, but also protects you, okay? And they slide out really nice and easy. So they come out very easily. I want to really make the point very clear that when you do put your knife back into this, it's pretty compact in there, you do want to make sure that your knife is completely clean and dry. Okay, so you dry it with a nice clean towel on the back side, not the sharp blade side, but on the back side all the way down, so that protects your hand. So just make sure it's really dry. You don't want to put any moisture inside of there. Even if you cleaned your knife really well, moisture loves bacteria, and if there's any little remnants of food or something on your knife, there's a potential for a food safety issue. So make sure that it's really nice and clean and dry, and then put it back in here, and back in the kit it goes. So really nice that it comes with also those really heavy-duty, nice and compact protectors for your knife. So this first one that we're looking at, it's called a brisket knife. Who doesn't love brisket? Most brisket we eat is from the cow, and it sits in the belly area. And a brisket benefits from a long, slow, low cooking method, typically smoked, but not always. And it's just a wonderful, delicious cut of meat. So a brisket is usually a pretty good size piece of meat, and so this knife would be really good for trimming that. We have another knife that would be good for trimming it raw as well, but you could trim the brisket a little bit. A brisket benefits from some meltable fat being left on the brisket, because as it cooks long and slow, that fat is going to melt into the brisket and tenderize it and flavor it. But there may be some undesirable fat or too much fat that we might want to trim a little bit of that fat off. So this knife would be great for that. And then when the brisket is finished and cooked, this knife is great for slicing that brisket, because again, it's a fairly large piece of meat. So it has the benefit of a lengthy blade, and long, smooth strokes with the blade. And it also has these nice little divots on the blade that will keep it from the meat from adhering to the brisket. The brisket like kind of sticking to the knife. So these little air pockets on the knife help release the meat from the knife, which is really nice and a safety feature as well. So not only is it like to keep you from getting annoyed, but it's also a safety feature. And we may have had that. Today we're really focusing on, we've got some beautiful proteins, and we're talking about slicing proteins in general. But I wanted to use just a potato as an example, because most of you, I'm assuming, like to cook and have cooked for a while, and that's why you're here. But that's just an assumption. I'm glad you're here for whatever reason, and we're glad that you're here live, but you can always watch on demand as well. So some of you may be watching this later on demand. Make sure and share these clubs with your friends. It's so great. But back to class. You may have been cutting a potato, and potatoes have a real tendency, because they're real starchy, to want to stick to the knife. So those little divots, those little air pockets, kind of keep the product. It just helps it like slide right off the knife, even if you were cutting thinner slices. So really nice knife. That's the first one in the set. It's called the brisket. And then we have again, I'm being very careful about taking these out. The next one we have is the butcher's knife. So the butcher's knife is, again, it's a fairly large knife, beautifully crafted. These are all 100% German steel, and really nice knife for larger projects. So larger cuts of meat. The butcher's knife would be dicing, slicing, larger, small pieces. I like this little tip on the butcher's knife for cutting around bones on larger pieces of meat. So again, lots and lots of uses. And not only for animal proteins. We do we prep a lot of things. I mean, already look at what we have out here today for our class today. Lots of things. So these could certainly be used for many things other than just animal proteins. So this one is the butcher's knife. And then the next one is a chef's knife, a barbecue chef's knife. So it's a pretty medium-sized knife. Lots and lots and lots of uses for this. It also has these wonderful handy little divots that will help release food from the knife. And it's a really nice size. All of these knives have a very comfortable grip. We pinch it like this up here. I actually have my thumb on the blade on this side, and my pointer finger knuckle is on the blade here. My fingertips are away from the bottom of the knife, but this is a proper grip on a knife, okay? So you always want to grip up on a knife like this. You don't want to be too far up for obvious reasons. That's going to feel really awkward. And if you're too far back, that might feel pretty comfortable, but it's a little unsteady. I have too much wiggle room in here. So you really want to hold the knife firm like this, and it should feel very solid in your hand. All right? And if you have the habit of doing this with your pointer finger, many people do, I would really encourage you to try and get away from that habit. It will feel awkward at first, but you'll get used to it over time. This sort of sets us off balance too and doesn't give us a safe, steady grip on our knife. So many people do this, and no judgment from me at all. I find myself doing it sometimes. But I'm just saying, if you can get away from that and practice this grip on your knife, I think over time you're going to be really happy and very proud of yourself. Okay, so work on that. And then the next one we have, the next knife, the last one in the set, is a boning knife, which I love a boning knife. I use it, obviously, for proteins, for animal proteins. I use a boning knife, and I love the Schmidt brothers with a little flexibility to it. It bends a little bit for other projects. So I would actually use this knife maybe to take like the peel off of a cantaloupe. So a cantaloupe has a thick skin, but it's not super, super thick like a watermelon or something. So the little bit of flexibility, and because a cantaloupe is not perfectly straight, it has a curve to it, this knife would be perfect for taking the peel off of a cantaloupe, okay? But we are gonna use it today for a couple of different things. It has some obviously fabulous uses for animal proteins as well. And then lastly, we have the carving fork, which I love the shape and size of this fork because it has numerous uses that I can think of to use it for. So its purpose is when we're grilling or barbecuing, it's holding our protein. We have that big brisket. It's holding it steady. Okay, it's holding it steady as we slice, and we can also use it for serving or moving things. Although today we are going to use our fabulous Schmidt Brothers bench scraper for moving items. This would also work really well. This doesn't come in this particular set, but it's something you should have to move the item off of the cutting board onto the platter. That's also a handy tool. But the fork, depending on the size and how many slices, could also be used for that as well. And you know what else I would use this for? I would also use this for a pasta fork. And if you have long ribbons of pasta and you're trying to serve it, have you ever had pulled out pasta like fettuccine out of a pan and it's kind of flying all over the place? It's sort of almost like one of those little rides at the carnival with all the swings kind of moving around and your fettuccine's going everywhere. A pasta fork, and this is really shaped a lot like a pasta fork, but has multiple uses. You sort of curl it up, you roll the pasta up on the fork, and you move it to the plate. Not only does it look beautiful, like restaurant, high quality beautiful, but it leaves the plate clean, it leaves your counters clean, it presents beautifully. So I would use this not only for my meat and carving, but I would also use that for pasta. And there's probably a lot of other things too. So anyway, just a fabulous set. I love the look, I love the feel, and of course we love what it does. It works phenomenally. Okay, so we will be using most of them today in class. I'm just going to move them off to the side here. Samantha, did we get any info in the chat about fair weather or not?
Oh, not too much of that, but lots of love for brisket.
Lots of love for brisket, right?
Yeah. Also talking about, brisket's not just a Texan thing, but also a Jewish thing too. Is
right.
Really popular in the Jewish community.
Right.
So yeah, love for that. And yeah, I was just thinking about how it's so great, the sharp knives, because sharp knives are so much, like as long as you're treating them well, they're so much safer because you don't have to put as much force into the knife.
They are safer, but you do need to get used to them. You really need to get used to them. I'm not going to jinx myself today, hopefully, but you need to really be careful. So we're going to make the marinade for the beef. We're doing a skewered beef kebab today. And so the marinade, we're using a a spice that's often used in Middle Eastern cooking called sumac, S-U-M-A-C, and you have access to the recipe. And sumac is it's a spice, and it has a really beautiful color. It's kind of a brick, ruddy red color. And the flavor profile is kind of tart, lemony, citrusy. It's very bright. And it's really, really delicious. So we're going to use some sumac in this. I'm sort of giving this a little Middle Eastern flair today. But we're going to start by making a garlic paste. So I have garlic cloves that I have peeled here. And the recipe calls for 3, but some of these were a little bit smaller, so I went ahead and used a little bit more. And maybe you feel the same way about garlic that you do brisket. It's like, okay, that's good. Love garlic. So maybe it's a little bit more than 3 cloves. But you know, cloves of garlic really, really vary in size. And so to make a garlic paste, I'm going to go and start with my chef's knife, with the barbecue chef's knife, and use that. So proper grip. And then I'm just going to begin by doing a very rough chop to begin with on the garlic. So just making the pieces just a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to use kosher salt. A coarse salt is good for this next step. And the kosher salt is bigger than a table salt. And it's a little coarse, so it's going to give us some abrasiveness to sort of break up the garlic from this rough chop stage, okay? So I'm going to use the back of my knife to scooch things around. If it was larger size product, I could use the Schmidt Brothers bench scraper, but I don't want to really scrape the blade of the knife on the board. These knives keep their edge for a long, long time, but you can keep your edge for quite some time if you take good care of it. That's no dishwasher, and that's not scraping it along the cutting board. Sometimes, you know, you have to just move it along the cutting board a little bit, but just try and avoid that whenever possible. And then I'm going to take my fingers towards the back end of the knife here, and I'm just pressing down. And that salt is helping to break the garlic up a little bit more. So my knife is really basically flat, so I'm not along the edge at all. And you could keep going and going and going with this. It really doesn't take very long. You could keep going and make a super, super fine paste. If I was making a salad dressing or something raw where there was going to be a lot of garlic, I would want the garlic to be a lot smaller. In a salad, I don't want to come across a big chunk of, in the back of the knife, a big chunk of garlic in a salad dressing. So for today's recipe, I can keep this a little bit big. Now when you make a garlic paste, I love this because it really helps incorporate the salt into the recipe. But when you make a garlic paste, you have to remember that you've already put the salt that's called for in the recipe in there. So sometimes the salt will come later on in the recipe. It'll say, you know, add this and this and this, and then add the salt. You have to say, oh yeah, I made the garlic paste, so the salt's already in there. So you always want to add salt as you're cooking, but you never want to go overboard. Always err on the underside so that you can always add more salt at the end, but if you add too much salt to something, it might be a little bit difficult to remedy it after that. Okay? So the marinade, we're just going to put this rough chopped garlic in there. Back of the knife with the salt. And then a little bit of 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Two. Perfect, right? And then 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So this boning knife would be perfect for just making a nice slice on the lemon. Each lemon, so average, has 2 to 3 tablespoons of fresh juice in it. So sometimes you pick up a lemon and it's bigger and it's really soft and you feel like, oh, it's really juicy. And sometimes you pick it up and it's like rock hard. And then maybe you cut into it and the rind is about a ½ inch thick. Sometimes the skin is nice and thin. So these are very juicy. You can see the rind is very thin. They're very soft. So 2 to 3 tablespoons per lemon. I would say this lemon would have probably 4 to 5 tablespoons of juice in it. It's really, really soft and juicy, and I'm loving it, okay? So I think I'm good. That was probably 2 tablespoons. We're going to use lemon later, so I'll just hold on to that, keep that off to the side. So here we have, for the marinade, we have the cumin and smoked paprika. So here we're going to get, not only are we going to grill these, and we're doing indoor grilling today, but not only are we going to grill these, we're going to have a little bit of smokiness through the smoked paprika. So Spanish paprika and Hungarian paprika are 2 different things. It's really important to know the difference between them. So the smoked paprika or Spanish paprika is smoky, has a pretty nice, sweet, smoky scent and flavor to it. Hungarian paprika is just more kind of sweet, more neutral. So we have that and the cumin. Samantha, do we have a
I
comment or
was just
question?
going to share that for me, it was just mind-blowing the first time I tried paprika that hadn't been hanging around somebody's kitchen for years. There's so much flavor, and I feel like smoked paprika, at least for me, is one of my most used spices because I love that kind of roundedness, that the smoky flavor.
I agree with you. I love it too, but I'd really like to point out that they are very, very different. They're not interchangeable, right? They are absolutely not interchangeable. So, and then we have everything in there except for the pepper. Let's add a little bit of pepper. So cumin, smoked paprika, salt, pepper, garlic, lemon juice. And that's the marinade. Really simple, wonderful, wonderful flavor profile. So we'll put that off to the side while we cut the meat. And the meat I want to show you today, we have 2 different types here. The recipe calls for tenderloin or another cut, a top sirloin. So we have both. And I just wanted to show you that this is the top sirloin, which we're going to use today. And this is the tenderloin, which we're going to use for another use. So the tenderloin, let's see, I don't need that little piece. We'll put that off to the side. The tenderloin it sits on the cow, it sits like below in the belly, and it doesn't get a lot of exercise, okay? So I don't know when the last time, anybody see a cow do sit-ups lately? It just kind of hangs there. And so when the cow's eating this wonderful diet of, whatever, grains or grass or whatever, the tenderloin is just it's just hanging out there, and it just doesn't get any muscle, so it's really, really tender, hence the name tenderloin. So it just hangs out in there. The top sirloin comes from a part that gets a little more exercise, and but it still is a super, super tender, just not quite as tender as a tenderloin. It doesn't mean it's better or worse, it's just different. And it will benefit from a little marinade, and then a really hot and fast grilling technique. So both of these cuts are cuts that can be served rare, medium rare, and you could cook them a little bit longer if that's the way you prefer your red meat cooked. The brisket is another thing, same animal, but the brisket, it comes from the belly area as well, but it is a piece of meat that benefits from a long, slow cooking time. So you have to, and your butcher has this information. If you need more information when you're shopping and you're getting ready to prepare something, a butcher is your best friend in helping you decide which cuts to buy for whatever you're making. So the tenderloin, what I'm going to do with the tenderloin is we're going to slice it really thin, and we're going to put it into like an Asian marinade later. We're not doing that, that's not part of the class today. I just wanted to show you the 2 different cuts, okay? You could certainly cube this, marinate it in the same marinade, and cook it. It would be absolutely delicious. You would just want to do it really fast and really hot and not overcook it. Or don't go low and slow on it. It's going to benefit from a really quick cooking time. And then the top sirloin will be somewhere kind of in between. We'll do a pretty hot temp on that, okay? So to trim it, the tenderloin has some meltable fat, which we want to keep because that's going to help actually flavor the dish, and it's going to marinate and baste the meat as it's cooking and help tenderize it even more. So it's going to be super tender. But sometimes you'll see this little bit of a sort of elasticy looking, we call this silver skin. And it does get chewy when it cooks. So this little flexible boning knife is perfect for coming in here and getting underneath that silver skin, trying not to cut into this beautiful piece of tenderloin. It's not the most inexpensive cut of meat, so you want to utilize and get as much as possible. And we're just going to come really close to the surface, and this knife works beautifully for this. See how little meat is attached to that, so very little waste. And I just want to take off that one little elastic piece there. And then we're good to go. All the rest of that is meltable fat. So we'll check out this other one over here. And that doesn't have any of that elastic silver skin on it, except for this one little piece. And I can see that the butcher, where we bought this, actually attempted to remove it and did a really great job of getting most of it. But I'm just going to come back and just pick up that little piece that he or she or they missed to remove that. Okay, and then we're good to go with that. All the rest of that fat is going to melt off of there. And so for the, you could actually use, there's a couple of knives you could use, but for this small piece of meat, I kind of like using this thin boning knife. I'm cutting meat across the grain. Now with a tenderloin, you don't really see much of a grain in a tenderloin. If you're familiar with like a flank steak, if anybody's familiar with a flank steak has a really visible grain, meaning you can see the lines the way the lines run. And you always want to cut across the grain. So with these little tenderloin steaks, it doesn't matter. Now I am cutting in strips, and I am going to marinate, but I'm going to go really, really hot and fast. And since it's an Asian style marinade, if we have availability to a wok, we'll use a wok. And a proper stir-fry technique is to really, really hot and fast, and the product is moving constantly. So that's how you make a really good stir-fry and keep it nice and tender, especially when you're using tenderloin. And then we would slice that one too. Maybe we have some ginger, some soy sauce, some garlic, maybe a little something sweet. And then we would proceed from there and do our stir fry. Okay, so for our kebabs today, we're using this top sirloin, which is a beautiful cut. It's already about 1 inch high. And so all we need to do is cut the rest of it across this way and into 1 inch pieces and get that marinating for our kebabs. So first I'm gonna look for some silver skin, not meltable fat, and I don't see any. So we're gonna go ahead and cut that. And let's go ahead and use one of these other fabulous knives. Oh my gosh, which one? It's like a gift to have all these choices. So let's go ahead, let's use this one, the brisket. And we'll just make sure we're trying to cut the meat in the same size. And you think about how you like your meat cooked. Do you like it rare, medium rare? Today, for class time, I'm gonna cut a little bit smaller. At home, I actually prefer my red meats more on the rare side personally, but we all have different preferences. So at home, I might cut them just a little bit bigger so that I can keep an eye on them and really control it as it's cooking and not overcook it. Remember, you can always cook something. See how it's like, this knife is cutting this steak like it's butter. It's just slicing right through. And nice, long, smooth strokes. Okay, so easy. You can always cook meat more. But if you overcook it, you're kind of stuck. You kind of have to eat it the way it is, right? So always cook it a little bit under. That actually would go for anything, probably, right? And cook it a little bit under. Okay, so sanitize this.
I'm always amazed by how much carryover cooking makes a difference, like how much more cooked it gets.
Yeah, you always have to account for that, don't you? Always,
yeah.
always, always.
Yeah, I have a friend that has one of those thermometers that actually like graphs the temperature. So he graphed the temperature of his like turkey, and the temperature kept rising for like 20 or 30 minutes after it was already out of the oven.
Right. Well, especially with larger pieces of meat, that's going to happen. Your carryover cooking is going to be a lot more because it's been in there longer. It's a bigger piece. With smaller pieces, it happens quicker, but it still happens. Anything you apply heat to carries over. Okay, so there we've got that wonderful marinade. We're just gonna let that sit in there. You know, ideally, if we had the time, you know, an hour, 4 hours, I would even, there's nothing really highly acidic in there. There's some lemon juice, and the sumac has a tart flavor, but nothing super highly acidic. You could go up to 8 hours. And again, it depends on how big you cut the meat and what's in your marinade. But that one could go up to 8 hours. If you can over marinate. If you over marinate something, meat sometimes can almost turn kind of mushy after it's cooked. So you do need to be careful and not over marinate. But if you're going to make a beautiful marinade like that, make sure that you allow enough time for it to really permeate. So today we're speeding things up a little bit, but at home you can give yourself more time. I'm going to remove this raw meat cutting board for the salad. Clean one underneath. I just always like to point out that I always put a little piece of paper towel or a damp kitchen towel underneath my cutting board when I'm cooking so that the board is not sliding around, it doesn't move. If I didn't have that little paper towel or something and I'm cutting, the board is sliding around. So that's for knife safety as well. So I always like to point that out that I do that. And I'm just gonna sanitize my hands here real quick with a Sani towel. And then we'll move into the salad. So I love this in the middle of winter to have this really wonderful, fresh, tart salad. And we're going to use the sumac in the salad. So we're going to start with the tomatoes. And we have these beautiful, it's so nice that we can get tomatoes year-round now. And choice of knives, chef's knife, the flexible boning knife would work for this. Any of them would. We're using small tomatoes, so I'm going to use a smaller knife. If you had a large vine-ripe tomato from the garden, that sounds really nice in the middle of winter, doesn't it? We're going to get there. Spring is coming, and then summer's after that. But a beautiful vine-ripened tomato that was big, this knife would work really great for that. The brisket knife would work really good to slice that tomato, and then those little divots on there would keep it from sticking to the knife. But we have small tomatoes today, so we'll stick with the small knife. And we have an assortment. We have way more than we need. These have been washed ahead of time so that I was ready to go here, and we'll just mix them up and do some different colors.
Yeah, and I don't know if this kind of gels with your experience, but in my experience, I feel like the small tomatoes in the winter, for whatever reason, they're just better. Like, it's hard to get a good big tomato in the winter, but the little cherry tomatoes or pear tomatoes tend to be still got some flavor.
They do. It's, there's different farming techniques happening, and for transportation, things coming from warmer places where they're growing them maybe, or hot houses. Yeah, we do. We have more availability every day, don't we, with our products that are available to us and that we're introduced to. I love that. Yeah, these are beautiful. And again, these knives, just cutting through them just like butter again.
Oh, it looks great. I feel like knives are just, tomatoes are almost like the ultimate test of a knife for
and
me a lot of the time.
Salt, so that little bit of salt is they're going to sit in here in the salt, toss that salt around, and then that's not only going to flavor the tomato, but it's going to kind of release some of those lovely tomato juices into the bottom of this bowl. And so we'll see what happens in the next few minutes with the time we have, but we may end up with some really lovely salted tomato juice that would be delicious in our salad when we finish it and put it all together. I'm going to turn up my grill pan here really high because I want to start cooking the meat as soon as possible. We're going to let those tomatoes sit, and I want to do one more thing ahead of time before we get our meat working here. We have a red onion, and this was a really big red onion. So choices on knives. Let's just try this butcher knife out just for kicks, because I think it'll work really well for this. And peel back the layers here. And then maybe we don't want big, huge slices of onion. I don't know. But maybe we'll do some thin slices across like this. Beautiful. Keeping my fingers out of the way. Use what I call the claw grip like this. This small fresh salad with this caramelized beef is going to be delicious. Okay, so let's go ahead and use the bench scraper, put the onions in there. And what I'm going to do with these is just give them a little rinse in some cold water. So pardon me for just a moment while I go to the sink. And that's just going to take a little bit of the sting, the bite off of these. And then we're just going to let those kind of hang out and mellow a little bit as we work on the meat. Okay, so that's kind of a nice little trick too. You can dunk them into some ice water if you have that handy, or just run them just for a few seconds under cold water. And it just kind of takes a little bit of the heat off. Not everybody loves raw onion in salad, and if you do like raw onion, but you're like, oh, sometimes it's a bit much, stays with me for a day or two, try that little trick of just some really cold water running over. So that's kind of handy. All right, so I think we should cook the meat. I wanted to show you this. I don't know if anybody's done this, whether you're grilling inside or outside. I always, if I'm using wooden skewers, I always soak them in water ahead of time, at least for 1 hour. And the purpose is that, especially if you're outside and you're over a live fire, you don't want the skewers to burn. So if the skewers are wood and they're dry, they're likely to burn, and if you soak them for some time before, they're less likely to burn. So I always soak them just in a little water. You can do it overnight if you want to. So they're ready to go. They can be in there, for even longer than that if you want. But just, it's a nice tip to remember to do that. And then we're going to take the meat, and I'm going to put some gloves on so that I can continue to make the salad afterwards, because I think trying to do this with skewering them with tongs might be a little problematic. So I'll just put these on. Working with raw meat. Some people don't like to touch raw meat. That's okay. Most of us have gloves in our households. I didn't before COVID, but I do now, right? Gloves in my house. And so we use them for cooking sometimes. Sometimes if you're cutting hot chili peppers, it's nice to wear a pair of gloves. And then we're just going to skewer the meat. And I think even with the really short amount of time we've had, I think it's going to be really nice and flavorful still. So leave a little tiny bit of space in between. We want to make sure that the whole thing cooks. So if we bunch it all up like this, it's going to be very difficult for the heat to get in between those. So just a little, barely, like till you can just barely see the skewer, I would recommend that. And portion size. So, I'm making these pretty much entree portion. They're probably going to be 6 to 8 ounces. Everybody, our tech crew